welcome to episode 27 of Jadoo Lifestyle, where you can have a life and live it too. We're creating a limitless life. Today we have Annette Bergman, very interesting person, and I'd like to share some of her information with you. She is, well, I'll let her give you some of her information. Annette, welcome to Jadoo Lifestyle Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. And I read your bio and I'm very, very excited about, well, we're talking to you today. So one of the first things I want you to ask you is to kind of tell us, give us a highlight on your career.
On my careers?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I started out finishing my education with a GED, and then when I got that, I went to beauty school, and then I owned several beauty salons for years, and then I got into real estate, and so I sold real estate for over 30 years, and I loved it. I loved working with the people, and then in those process, life happens, so I had someone approach me to put together the Tybee Island official flag. It was their first one, so I made that for them. And then I sent in an original design that I had come into my mind while driving from Atlanta back to Savannah. And it was about how to cut a sweatshirt, where they'd roll in or roll out. And so I did a heart design and sent it to Simplicity, and they called me immediately when they got the shirt and said, would you do 8 other designs? And so I did. So then I ended up having Causal Cut-Ups, which was their best-selling booklet pattern for 3 years. And then my son had an accident, and I had published several articles in the newspaper. They were just humorous things. But that accident put me in such an emotional state, I didn't know what to do with all the emotions, so I started writing. And that helped to find peace within, just simply by getting that out and stating how I really felt about things. So I think I've covered about all major accomplishments other than having 4 children and 7 grandchildren and great-grandchildren and just enjoying my family.
Okay, so where would you like us to focus on today?
I believe the book Return to Tybee, because it kind of parallels what's going on right now in the United States on biased opinions, and I don't think that it's for any one certain generation or any color of skin. I think that what a lot of the protests are about happens to different people, and it's not so much what you did, it's who you do it to. So that was the theme of me writing Return to Tybee, and it took, like I said, 14 years to get it written, and God had his hand in that all along. A girl that started our writers group, she helped me. I flew to Austin so I could have quiet time to finish that book, and she was a published author herself, so she knew what I needed. And then she asked me, we would go out for lunch or something, and we went to a bookstore, and she handed me a book that was written about how to improve your style and grammar within 24 hours by Dr. Dennis Hensley. So another one said, you need to go to the Midwest Writers. So I went to the Midwest Writers, and I looked over the list of 250 people, And I thought, I don't know a soul, but there's a lady from Atlanta I would like to meet. So the first evening was a get-together and a chat session, and all the tables were filled except this one. There were two ladies there and another chair, so I asked if I could join them, and they said I could. Well, that was the lady from Atlanta. What was the chances? So then she was looking for a ride back to her hotel because she flew in. And so I was staying at the same hotel. I said, you can ride with me every day. We'll just, meet for breakfast and get ready and come back over. Well, she wanted to know what I wrote about, so I let her have that manuscript and some articles that had already been published in the paper. And the next morning, she said, you need to show this to Dr. Hensley. I said, are you talking about the man that wrote How to Improve Your Style and Grammar in 24 Hours? And she said, yes, he's a personal friend of mine, and I want him to see this manuscript. What are the chances,
Yeah.
So anyway, she introduced me to Dr. Hensley. He took my manuscript. He said, I'm going to look that over this evening. And he taught writing at Taylor University. So the next morning, he said, this story has to be told, and I'm going to edit it for you. And so he said, we're going to be done with this before I start teaching. So he was sending me 3 or 4 pages a day that he had made corrections that I had to get corrected.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, it had God's hand all over it, and English was my worst subject, so,
Okay. So that gives me hope, huh? So yes. Can I ask you would you mind talking a little bit about what happened with your son?
Not at all. He had been at a party with his friends and his girlfriend, and he had a curfew. He knew he had to be home by 11, and he didn't. He called and said Chris wouldn't leave with him. And then I said, well, tell me where you are, and I'll come get both of you. No, I'll be home. Well, then he started home, and then he decided he couldn't leave her because there was 2 or 3 other boys there. And so he went back to pick her up, and she wasn't there. So he was going through Kokomo to go to a reservoir where I guess the young kids hung out. I didn't know anything about that. And on the way, they said he was speeding through Kokomo, and so the police radioed, car speeding. And so a state trooper that had just gotten off work decided he would get in on the chase. So he comes through the turn, the crossover or whatever with no lights on or anything, waiting on the description of the car. And when it showed up, he pulled out in front of it. And my son pulled to the left to miss him. He pulled to the left to get out of my son's way, and he ran up over the top of that car. And it killed the state trooper. And when you get involved with something like that, like I say, it's not so much what you did. It was an accident. We're talking about a red-headed, blue-eyed, freckle-faced kid that looked like Opie on whatever that show was. I can't even think of it right now. But anyway, it's the Andy Griffith show. He was just 17. And he was thrown in jail immediately. And when we got there, he didn't know where he was. He didn't know why he was there. And he looked like he had been beaten. And so, as a mother, we want answers. What happened? What happened? So it took a while to get to the bottom in my mind, but it never showed up in the court's records. And there had been a witness to that, other it was a truck driver. They had state police testify for the policeman, but they never called the truck driver. And I looked him up, and a friend and I went up to talk with him, and he said this trooper made the mistake. He pulled out in front of the car, and the trooper saw the accident. I mean, the truck driver saw the accident, stopped, went over there, and he said they pulled him out and beat him terribly. So that's probably why between that and the impact and the trauma, he just didn't know where he was. So, like I said, they put him in jail, and they ended up giving him 5 years. And at the same time, or within a short period of time, there was a policeman in Indianapolis that had been drinking. And I don't know if he was on duty or off duty, but he ran up on the sidewalk and ran over 2 young black girls, and they didn't even take him off of work. No punishment at all. So, it's all true. When I tried to get the court records, they denied them. My son tried to get them. They wouldn't let him have them. So I had to find somebody that worked in the courthouse that would get them for me. And this person did, and I had to pay for them, which I was glad to, because it just proved everything that I already knew in my heart,
Yeah.
So it's a good book for anybody that has young kids, and it even changed the insurance law in Indiana. They collected off my homeowners because my car insurance didn't give them enough money. So they sued through the homeowners, sued us for negligible entrustment, and collected. They won their case through your homeowner's policy. So now you can't go against the homeowners for a traffic accident. So
what happened
anyway,
with
that's
your son?
pretty much. Well, he did his time. They kept him every day, and they let a man that had molested a little boy out early for Christmas vacation. But they kept him right down to the last minute. So it's just injustice is what it is. And what else can I say? It's just injustice. It's not what you do, it's who you do it to.
So, very interesting. It must have been very emotional for you.
It was extremely emotional because there's some other personal things in there, but I'll be glad to tell it that I'd married a man when I was pregnant with the son, and he said he would raise him as his own son. And he tried, But when the lawsuits started coming in, he just moved out and let me handle it all by myself. So, you got the responsibility of your son in jail, and then I had to go see him once they sent him to prison. I could only see him every other weekend, and then my mother was dying of cancer at the same time. So I would work 2 weeks, go see my son, drive to Georgia to see my mother, come back, see my son, work 2 weeks, and I did that up until my mother passed away. So